Hi, my name's Niki. This is The Interventionalist. And today I want to talk about something that's a little bit of a continuation from my last video about fan fiction and kind of like romance and love. But it's a little bit different. I want to talk about the experience of living in the after of something that sort of irreversibly changed you. Living in the after of something that caused you to stop in your tracks in your life, and you knew that going forward was going to be an active effort to continue your life. Like something changed it irreversibly. And going forward would have to be like an active choice. And sort of the responsibility that you have to take on when you've been against your will changed by something. And now it's your responsibility to fix it. And the burden that can cause and the pain. But it's really not in a negative way. That it sounds like it's going to be sad, but I'm not going to talk about it in a sad way. But the way that it relates to my last video is around 49 minutes. If you're interested, this is where I talk about it. I've always had this idea, or I've always felt this way, where like growing up, ever since I was a kid, I would hear something and it would mean like so much to me, hear something, read something, and it would mean like everything to me. I would be obsessed with it, but it made no sense to me. Like I couldn't tell you what it meant. It was not applicable to my life. Like it didn't make any sense to me. But I would cling to it. And then years down the line, like I would hear it again, or it'd be in my mind because it followed me, and it would make perfect sense. It was like verbatim relatable now to what was happening in my life. And sometimes it would be things that I wrote. And in the last video, I read something that I wrote, and it's related to love and my experience like with love and my relationship to it in general. And how like it's followed me. And in that video, I'm talking more so about the way that I had an unhealthy relationship with love and unhealthy like sort of understanding of love. And I would have these moments or these things where I felt really connected to them before they meant anything. And then they would mean something down the line. And I would think, oh, it was prophetic, right? But in reality, it was most likely a self-fulfilling prophecy written by something that I just wasn't aware of, which was the media and things that I consumed from a young age that developed very heavily my ideas of love and my relationship to love, like fan fiction. If you're interested in that video, how much it influenced my relationship to love and then influenced my future actions. And then that influence, I wasn't really cognizant of that influence and thinking that, I don't know, that it was just like some fated thing meant to be. That's kind of the way in which I talked about it before. But then yesterday, there's other things in my life that weren't related to love and things that I've held on to, that I've like clung to. And the other day I was going through my phone. I was looking for a picture from like 2022. I needed a picture from something. And I saw a video that I took about like 2 months after I got out of an abusive relationship. And it was right after I had to move states. I had to move states after I got out for safety reasons. And I knew no one. I lived across the country from my closest friends and my family. And then the friends I did have were back in this other state. And I just had to leave. And I moved somewhere that I didn't even know. The place that I moved was in another state, and I'd never been there. I went there for 15 minutes to find an apartment. And then I signed a lease within those 15 minutes, left, and had to fly back to my hometown until the lease started so I could like go back and live in this new place that I didn't know anyone or didn't know anything, and start over my life. And I didn't have anyone. I had no one. And I couldn't like just move back to my hometown because I had a job and in this like sort of surrounding area that I had to be somewhat close to. And if I had to go, I could go. And I saw a video I got out of that relationship in August, and I saw a video from, I think, October, and I was restarting my life. Like, I was restarting my life from nothing. And if I get emotional in this, it's not in a bad way. But I was restarting my life from literally nothing. I knew no one. And I was pushing through in every way that I could. Like, from the moment I moved there, I involved myself in whatever I could to try and, like, build a life because I knew it was the right thing to do. And I needed to do the right thing. I needed to keep living in this after. I needed to keep going. And so I made that active decision. I made that active effort because it was my responsibility. There was no one who was going to help me continue. If I wanted to keep living, I had to take the responsibility for what was ripped away from me, and the impact that had on me, and then the part of me that literally just lives and survives, whatever you want to call it, your soul, your well-being, your nervous system, whatever it is, had been completely ruptured. And I was just going to have to make the active effort every single day if I wanted to continue and have a life, to take the responsibility of fixing it. And sometimes that responsibility just feels like too big of a fucking burden. And it feels like an insurmountable kind of thing to have to take responsibility for your life after your life was changed against your will in a way that often feels sometimes unbearable. And maybe you know that life will never be the same, but you still need to continue it and find a regular, a new familiar. And so that's what I did. I was committed to that because I couldn't stop. So I never slowed down, and I moved, and I involved myself in everything. I like got really involved in a dance studio and like a dance community, and like I was just nonstop. And I saw a video of myself from around that time when I was like now maybe a month into living there, and my whole life had exploded there because I was not slowing down. And in it, I guess I never realized like what I looked like. Like I was just so shocked. Like I guess I haven't looked at like just a video of myself from that time in my life that was just, taken for no reason. It was just, I was just in the video, and my eyes were like, I don't know. I guess never knew that. I never knew how empty they looked or how dull. Even in videos where I'm smiling with friends, like there's just nothing there. And they're dark. Like I look like I haven't slept in weeks. And even if I guess I had been sleeping, like I just look dull and sad. And it was like such a visceral reminder of what that moment felt like. And I haven't looked at something like that ever. But more importantly, I think I never really saw the difference because I wasn't far enough along in my life after that it felt that different to look at. Like seeing myself in contrast now to that video for the first time feels stark. But up until now, like if I looked at it, I wouldn't feel like there was some stark, insane contrast or difference because I guess I wasn't that different. I wasn't so far removed from it. And that doesn't even mean in time. I wasn't so far removed from it emotionally because of healing that it felt like there was even a difference. It felt like there was a before and an after. I've never felt like there was really a before and an after, or at least in a way where I could visibly see it, and it was jarring. And it just it hit me in the chest. And immediately, like when I saw it, I was reminded of these lines that I heard when I was 14. And I've never forgotten them. And every year I wonder if I should get it tattooed. But I don't even listen to the song like that often. But there's the lines from it that I heard when I was 14 when it first ever came out. And it's a song from that band Bastille, who I don't even really listen to. And it's called Oblivion. And there's these lines in it that say, "Are you going to age with grace?" That's it. And the whole line, phrase that I do still remember, but the line that has stuck with me so deeply is, "Are you going to age with grace?" But the whole phrase is, "Are you going to age with grace? Are you going to leave a path to trace? Are you going to age with grace only to wake and hide your face?" And in my last video, I talk about a different set of lines from a book that I never forgot. And totally different meanings, totally different vibes. In the last video, it was from the book Night and Day by Virginia Woolf. And it said, "Believe me, Catherine, you'll look back on these days afterwards. You'll remember all the silly things you've said, and you'll find that your life has been built on them. The best of life is built on what we say when we're in love. It isn't nonsense, Catherine," she urged. "It's the truth. It's the only truth." And just to give an example of how much these stick with me, I read this at 17. When I was in college at 18, I framed it, highlighted the words. I took the page, framed the page, and highlighted the words and had it in my college dorm. And now at 25, it's what's pasted on that picture there. So these things follow me, and they follow me in different ways. This idea that love is and isn't nonsense, it's kind of everything to you, follows me in sort of an urgent way, I have to do this way. I need to, oh my God, I can't fall behind. This is a purpose. I need to do this. versus the line, "Are you going to age with grace?" followed me in a way that like felt always like very bittersweet. And it was always there in the back of my mind. Like it felt like something that I had to do. Like it was always this reminder that if I need to do this, if I want to be okay and I want to make it through my life and be proud of my life, even in my worst moments, I need to do this. It's not something that necessarily is my purpose, but in order to like eventually even achieve the things that I want to achieve, like maybe having a relationship and being in love, even when I had an unhealthy idea of it, the only way I would get there was if I continued to age with grace, like even in my worst moments. So whenever I was having like one of the worst moments in my life, that line would always play in my head. Whenever I like was at sort of a breaking point where I could choose one path or the other, which was, to be honest, like take the cruelty I've experienced and fall apart, or be cruel in response, or take the cruelty I've experienced and find a way to make it into something that I don't hate myself for. And I've never forgotten it because of that. And the first time I heard it and I related it to when I was 14 was I didn't want to be my father. I was really afraid of turning into my father. My dad has a horrific temper and was mean. I do love my dad and we have a different relationship now, but that doesn't change what my childhood was, and that it was only up until like a couple years ago that things changed. And I didn't want to be him. It was my biggest fear. And so when I heard that line at 14, the first time, it stuck to something inside of me. It was tethered to something inside of me, a moment where I could take one path or the other because I had absorbed all of his cruelty. Either I could become him and I could project that back out, or I had the chance to absorb it and refuse to let it back out into the world. I had two options. I was very aware of that fact because at this point, like that was all I had, was like a childhood where my dad was like quite mean, quite cruel. He was cruel. And I didn't want to be him. And sometimes my mom would be like, "Oh, you're like your father, like you're loud or whatever." I don't know. She would say things like that. And so it was my biggest fear. And so I heard those lines. I went home when I heard them for the first time, and I wrote in a notebook that I have still. It's in my hometown, in my childhood bedroom, where I said that I was swearing to myself that I would not be mean, that I would not be a mean person. Like I was going to make an active effort to never be a mean person because I didn't want to be my father. And so I did it. I refused. I refused to be a mean person. And just because of the way my personality is, I'm always all in. And so I changed like overnight. And it was not like just something I knew. Everyone around me saw the change. Like suddenly I was a lot less, what would be the word? Stable. And I don't mean I was unstable, but you could push me over if you wanted to because I wasn't going to push back out of fear that I'd hurt you if I pushed. So I was a major pushover. I became what you would call a people pleaser. I developed that issue, and that's a whole other issue. But I just changed. I was not someone who could tell people no. I was never going to be like someone who rejected someone. I was like, I didn't want to be mean in any way possible. So I changed as a person, and it followed me for my life, and then, contributed to the way that I became someone like pretty easy to bulldoze over in relationships, or even in reality, if you're a people pleaser. And I was struggling with that, dishonest with myself and then dishonest with others, because when I was affected by something or should have spoken up about something, I chose not to. And that's a form of dishonesty. And so while I thought it was like fixing me and fixing the problem, like it was turning me into somebody that didn't respect myself and wasn't honest with myself, and then was therefore like dishonest to others. And I don't know, I'm aware of that now, but when I was younger, I didn't see it that way. I wasn't seeing it as like, that's harmful and like unfair to another person to not be honest with them. Assuming it's situations where like you're safe and can be, right? It's always dependent. But I just saw it as like, no, I'm doing the right thing. Like this is the right thing. I'm being good. I'm doing the right thing. I'm aging with grace. Like by never being a reason that somebody might even for a second feel slightly uncomfortable. Because causing any discomfort for anyone ever felt like I'm not even religious, but I was going to be damned for it. At least self-damnation. And so it was the first time I heard that. And that was the first time it clung to something inside of me. And then after that, any moment where I was like at a crossroads where like, okay, I could turn into someone else or I could refuse to. And because of the original promise I'd made myself, which was I never wanted to be mean, I'd hear that line in my head and I'd always take the route of refusing to. And that meant internalizing a lot of pain. Because when you feel that way, like you're afraid of ever projecting any pain that you've experienced into the world, ever. Even if it's not that you're afraid you're going to be mean to someone, but you're afraid you're going to burden someone. So you carry all of this pain that you've experienced, and it's just building inside of you. You internalize it, and it weighs you down. It's heavy. It's heavy, and then the more experiences you collect that are tainted by the fact that you're internalizing this so deeply, because then it does seem to like taint everything you experience because it's so overwhelming inside of you. Everything becomes disorienting, and the idea of untangling all of your life experiences from this thing that was so large and painful inside of you seems so difficult, and you just become sort of consumed by the bad that you've experienced when you've internalized something. It can contaminate everything. You can't separate it anymore, you know? And that's what I did. I internalized everything and didn't talk about it, didn't tell anyone about it, because I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to like take the pain I've experienced and put it in the world and maybe cause others pain. I didn't want to be mean by ever confronting anyone. So I internalized it all. And then I got older, and you know, that's always going to be at the expense of yourself. I guess it's kind of like that quote. What is it? It's like when you're keeping someone else's peace, or like when you don't speak up, whose peace are you really keeping? It's kind of like that, right? When you refuse to exhale anything that has affected you or lives inside of you, everything that you've inhaled that hurts, when you refuse to exhale any of it out, maybe even when you're alone, like it's going to consume you. And I refused to do that. And so whatever, I inhaled it all, and it tainted every single thing in my life. And so I would go through my life and like affected by all of it for years, all the time, because I wasn't healing it. And so, for example, like from the first time I made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to be mean, and then I carried that with me when I would experience somebody being really cruel to me. I had a really difficult time ever like standing up for myself or speaking up, because I made that promise to myself and I hadn't allowed myself to talk about it, what even led to that promise, or the things that like had hurt me that I felt like could be causes for me to become someone that I didn't want to be. And so it just followed me, and it impacted me, and it caused me to be quieter when I should speak up, and it just followed me. And the reality of it is that this following me was always an effort. This is sad, but it's actually not. This following me and like the internalization of these things were inherently self-destructive, right? And I guess you could argue easily that it was a form of self-abandonment. And I would have a couple weeks ago, a week ago, a day ago, that it was like a form of self-abandonment, internalizing these things and refusing to project them out into the world, and letting them alter all my actions in a way to try and make it better, to fix things, to try and fix things, to try and be good, to try and be right. And so I would internalize it all, not express it, and try and like be better, and just, I don't know, take everything in and try and like make it make sense and be better, be right, be better, be right. I don't know. To be okay, to fix things, to fix me and to fix things and to fix others. And that came out in unhealthy ways, like not being able to speak up for myself, or not believing that I had any worth, or forgoing all my boundaries in lieu of like having romantic relationships, but more than anything in lieu of like being a good romantic partner. Because again, I associate any kind of like pushback on somebody at that point as being mean. And I swore to myself at 14 I would never be mean. And then at that point, because of that and other vulnerabilities that I had other experiences where like I was caused more pain because of that. And now I'm carrying all of this with me, and I'm doing this all to protect another person, but I'm doing that all because I also want to be a good person, because I want things to be right and okay, and I want to live a life that I feel like is right. Like I'll get it right if I do these things. And for the first time, I realized like I always thought, okay, I didn't love myself. I've like had terrible self-worth. And yes, I did. I had terrible self-worth. But I guess for the first time, like I see it differently in the way that, you know, yes, I sort of allowed myself to be consumed by others as a way to be good, or as a way to like be right, to fix things, I don't know, to make up for the fact that like I suck, whatever it was. I sort of allowed myself to be consumed by others because I wanted better for myself. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to feel better. I didn't know how to make the world around me feel better. I didn't know how to be better to others. And that was the best way that I could figure out how to do it, was being overly giving, being quiet in the face of somebody's cruelty, or like being quiet in the face of somebody's honesty and refusing to be honest myself, thinking I'm protecting them. And then by foregoing my boundaries to avoid discomfort and making the other person uncomfortable, and also my own discomfort. But the point is, I was trying to avoid discomfort because I thought it was bad, and I wanted better, and I wanted things to be better, and I never wanted somebody to feel bad the way that I'd felt bad when I was a kid. And I also didn't want to keep feeling bad. And things like romantic love, if you watch my last video, to tie it back to like one of the things that like this was tied to, I really did believe like romantic love could be a form of salvation. And so that's what it meant something to me, because that meant things could be better and I could give myself a better life and a happy life, and I could get it right. I could get it right, and I could be saved. No matter how unhealthy that idea was, I could be saved if I was loved romantically and if I got into romantic relationships. So I did whatever I needed to like make it work when I was in one. And I was in an abusive one, but still then like it felt like, okay, but this is right. This is what it should be. Like I'm getting something right for the first time, because I've been told that this is what will save you and this is what's so necessary to a full life. And I was so empty inside. I had such a large void despite being so stuffed full with all these internalized things that I refused to let out. That's what I thought would make my life better. That's what I thought would save me. And what is that if not love? Like, what is trying to save yourself if not love? Like, yes, maybe I didn't know how to do it. And maybe in the process, I actually, in some ways, was abandoning myself. But I would say that there's a paradox there, because I would say I was also consistently choosing myself, because I did not do these things for no reason. I did these things because I wanted to be better. I wanted to be something better. And I wanted to be better to others, and because I wanted a better life and I wanted to be saved. And how is that truly abandoning myself? Like, I think even through all of that, no matter how much I did abandon myself in the effort of keeping the peace and saving the things from around me from falling apart or losing or being just uncomfortable people, losing relationships or circumstances. Yes, maybe I had to abandon parts of myself in order to keep that peace or maintain something, but I was abandoning myself in an effort to save myself, to find a way, to find the thing and to have the thing that I was told would save me or I thought would save me. And so at the same time, I was consistently and always choosing myself. And there's a paradox there, because the problem was the things I had consumed and internalized and just all the experiences I had in my life, like it was abandoning myself for the comfort of others that I thought would save me. I thought that that would be what saved me. And everything that we do, even when it's for others, is also for us in some way or another. Not just everything is inherently selfish or conceited, but we act from our own selves. Like everything is coming from you. And so everything that I did, even if it was for the sake of others feeling good, it also came from myself. And for me, it was trying to find the thing that would make life worth it, that would make life something worth living. And so yes, maybe I abandoned myself, but it was because I loved myself. And I thought that if I did these things, that I would find a life worth loving or worth living. And I would find a life that I wasn't not proud of, that I wasn't, embarrassed of, that I didn't feel bad about or regret. And so I just did the things that at that time I knew or I thought would allow me to achieve that. But I was a kid raised in a really not good home. And then I got older and, when you're raised in environments like that, you become more vulnerable. And that's what happened. I ended up in an abusive relationship when I did finally come out of the closet and date. First relationship I got in, I've only been into. I was in an abusive relationship. Obviously, all of these things culminated to impact me, to lead me to being more vulnerable to these things. But all those experiences led to me being someone who didn't know how to navigate situations in a way that could choose from a secure place how to protect myself, and how to truly care about myself. So I didn't know how to do it, but I knew that I wanted to. And that was me not giving up. That was me refusing to make other people uncomfortable, because at that point in my life, I thought that that would be what was doing the right thing and choosing myself. But now I realize being honest with yourself and being honest with others, you can do that while remaining kind, but that is choosing yourself. Dishonesty is never choosing yourself, in whatever way that comes through. I just didn't know, because of my past experiences, I didn't have the information necessary to make decisions that were actually protective of myself and would actually genuinely be in honor of my own well-being and myself and in respect of myself, because I just hadn't experienced those things towards me. So I was trying to figure it out with no guidebook, no scaffolding, no nothing to look back on to help me guide these situations and figure out how to act in a way that doesn't abandon myself. And so I acted in ways that, yes, also caused self-abandonment in an effort to not abandon myself. But I was always urgent, sort of desperate and feral, if you will. Out of desperation, always trying to get it right and be better and make things better. And I never stopped, and I was always running towards something, and I just kept trying and trying and trying. For example, when I moved after that abusive relationship and I restarted my life here, I didn't stop. From the moment I moved, I was spending hours every day doing something that would force me to live in the world and be present there, despite the fact that I felt like I was dying. I felt like I couldn't breathe all of the time. I felt like I was nothing. I had nothing. I had nothing left to give, and yet I still found a way to give it. And I thought that was me loving myself, and in some ways it was. But in reality, it put me in situations where, because I knew that it needed to look like this from the outside, where I had a life, a world. Do you think that I really was developing healthy friendships? I just needed to feel like I was doing the right thing. So I just went back into it already containing already stuff full of all these internalized ideas that I need to just be whatever somebody needs in order to make them comfortable. I already internalized that. And then now it's I need to have a life that looks right to others, so that I'm doing it right. It needs to be right. I need to be doing it right. And so then I went and I moved and I developed all these one-sided friendships. So they weren't healthy friendships. And so while I also was choosing myself by doing that, I was actively abandoning myself. And then I hit 6 months into living there, and I just lost it. I just didn't have anything left to give. I didn't have anything. And then it was sort of a metaphorical, but also literal, because I had been so physically active trying to run away. I was working out all the time, just depleting myself in every way I could. A physical collapse on the ground. I can't continue doing this. And that forced me to take a look at just the way I was navigating the world in my life. But I've gone through my life then since thinking that I've always hated myself and I didn't love myself, and everything that I did was because I didn't love myself. And how terrible is it that I went through my life so unloved by even myself, and just feeling guilty about the fact that I couldn't even care about myself, guilty as if I'm another different person, being how sad she doesn't get to be loved, but it's me. Just these weird forms of guilt. When in reality, I'm my entire life, from the first moment I've read that line, has been me committing to continue aging with grace, continue trying to be better in whatever way that I thought in that moment I could be better. And so I would say that maybe I loved myself all along. Maybe I have always been the person I've loved most, because I kept trying. And the things I kept trying to do were self-destructive, because I didn't have the resources to know how to self-reconstruct or to be self-secure in myself. I didn't have a life that built me up that way. But it doesn't matter, because those were the things I thought would help me get there. So I committed to them wholeheartedly, and I didn't stop, and I didn't change until I was forced to relook at everything that was happening in my life. When a friend told me, I've said this in another video, this is kind of dark, but when I got out of the abusive relationship, I told him the whole story. He's the only one who really knows it. And how I had no self-worth and no boundaries. And he was I'm not trying to shame you, but if you don't change, the next person's going to kill you. And that was one of the first times I had to really consider the fact that I was all in on these methods to have a better life and to fix myself and to give myself a better life that were going to kill me, maybe. That's really dark, but it's true. That much self-abandonment, it's going to lead to something terrifying. And it was. And years have now passed, and for the first time, like, I think that I can respect who I was in the past in a way that I never had before, because I kept trying and I kept living in the after and made active efforts to make it better. Even when I was choosing paths that hurt and that ended up hurting me, I did them because I thought I was doing the right thing and I was doing something better, even if that meant abandoning myself in the process. But I've never seen it that way. I've always just sort of felt bad and a little bit embarrassed maybe by the fact that I was like that for so long, that I hated myself like that for so long. Like, it can be quite embarrassing, I think, sometimes, or humiliating for others to see and to know yourself, that you have so little self-worth, or I guess, or make maybe the same mistakes over and over again. How long until you stop making them? And, you know, I got to a point where I guess, like, I've stopped making them. I've stopped making the mistakes that like caused me so much of the same pain, particularly in relation to relationships and boundaries and the way that I take care of myself. But I still looked back on that time as something that's like kind of, I don't know, like embarrassing, like that. I really hated myself that much. Like, that's just kind of sad. And I didn't hate myself for it, but I just always felt a little humiliated by it. And I guess a little bit let down by myself and regretful, and maybe, yeah, a little bit humiliated by it, even though I refused to like keep that from me being honest about it. And for the first time, like, I guess literally as of yesterday, I don't feel humiliated by it at all, because I know it's not true. I know that if I didn't love myself in some way, if in one way or another, I wasn't always like my, if you will, in the most cliche terms, like my one true love, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have a life in the after. After the moment or the moments where my world stopped and I had to make an active effort to continue, because there was now a line drawn in the sand that things were never going to be the same. I could not undo that change, and I was going to have to like ride that wave of change and like figure out how to keep living and riding it out until it like didn't feel like it was going to kill me. If I hated myself so much, I would not have done that. I wouldn't have done that. And there is power in that, I think, that I never even realized. Like, there is so much power in simply, even for 5 seconds after a moment that's completely changed your world, choosing and continuing to live in those moments after. Like, that is strength embodied, I would say, and personified wholeheartedly, to continue to live in those moments after. And that does not come from self-hatred. Hatred is an incredibly motivating thing, right? But are you really hating yourself into a better life? I don't know if you can. I don't know if anything loving and peaceful and calm will bloom from hate. I'm not saying hate can't be a motivating factor. I think it can be, and I think that doesn't always have to be a bad thing. But I think if you're continuing your life after and giving yourself the opportunity to keep living, to keep having a life, there has to be love mixed in there somewhere. Because you're not, I imagine, continuing a life solely with the intention of being miserable. No, you're continuing it to find a way to live, to survive it. And you might just be surviving. Maybe that's what it feels like. But the fact that you are committing to surviving, that's love. That's dedication. That's devotion. That's what that is. That's loyalty. That's respect. That's honoring someone, seeing it as valuable enough that even on your worst days, keeping it alive. And that's yourself. If you've continued to live after something that forced you to live in a new world, a new life, and one that is now feels like contaminated and disorienting, making that decision, I think it's worth commending yourself on the amount of care that you still had for yourself, even when maybe there had been such cruelty towards you, or you've experienced something so unbelievably or almost insurmountably painful and careless, and feels like it sucked all the love and kindness and warmth out of your world. You still had to maintain some of it in order to continue to live after and to survive and to wake up in the morning, literally, and like drink water so that you don't dehydrate to death. It is literally just things like this that are evidence that despite the fact that maybe something came into your world, done to you or happened to you or in front of you or that you saw or that you witnessed, that took, in theory, all of the color out of it, all of the vibrance, all of the warmth, all of the softness, all the things that you once felt like you lived for or made your life living, like something you could live, livable, having it sucked away, ripped away from you, and you still maintained it inside of you enough to continue after. How is that anything but love personified? How is that not love personified? I used to always think that when I lived in this reality, I talked about in my last video how my relationship to romantic love has changed so vastly. And here's one of the ways. I used to think about the way that one day, if I met the right person and I achieved this thing, right? Like seeing it as something I needed to achieve, like a romantic relationship and fell in love, that it would be the experience of meeting someone who was love personified, or like my love personified. That was kind of the idea. Like all of this love that I had and I wanted to give and I wanted to experience, they would be personified in a person and I would meet them. And that's something I've written. I'm sure that's on my website and one of the things I've written, like their love personified. That's what I imagined. But now for the first time ever, thinking about it from this perspective and thinking about like who was the only person, even when the decision made was maybe the one that ended up hurting rather than being better, who was the one that continuously made the decision to make sure that I kept living and trying to live a life that was bearable and better, even if I made theoretically maybe the wrong choice, whatever. That was me. That was me. That was only me. That was only ever me. And so how could I be anything but my own love personified? Like that's not going to be someone else because that's already me. I don't need to see my love personified in another person. And I think it's important to note that I used to think like my love personified as in like I needed to see it outside of me externally to experience it. No, like I am my own love personified because I'm experiencing it all the time through myself. I've always been experiencing it in ways that didn't always make sense or weren't always healthy because I didn't know how to do that when I wasn't given the right past and experiences to help me build that. But it was always there. And so I have always been my own love personified. I never needed somebody to reflect it back on me. And yes, I'm sure that'll be a wonderful thing to meet someone where like I can see their love and love personified through them in some way or another. But I have my own. I have evidence like from years and years and years that maybe the decisions look like I hated myself and maybe some of them were rooted in that. But I made them in hopes of one day loving myself in the way that I thought I could hopefully achieve if I kept trying. So I kept trying all of the things that I had in my vault of things to try. So I have always been the love personified that I thought I needed to find, to feel love, to have evidence of it, to know that it exists, to have it like forced onto me so that it was real when I felt like I had none of it and I was never going to have any of it. So I looked for it somewhere else. But I don't need to see it outside of me. I don't need to see it in another person coming towards me because it's coming from me. And it's always been coming from me. And it has always been projected in my actions. And the thing that I was so afraid of projecting, the pain that I carried, that line, like, are you going to age with grace? I think I've remembered it so long because instead of projecting that, I projected what, yes, were actions that looking back now did cause me pain, but they were projections of an effort to lead a life that would lead to love and betterment and happiness. And aging with grace, that line, that was my commitment to that. That was my commitment, was to lead a life that would lead to something kinder and warmer and softer. And so when I heard that line in my head in all my worst moments, when I was 22 out of that abusive relationship, the girl who was in those videos whose eyes were like empty, I never gave up. Even when I was exhausting myself, like to the point where I was like borderline going to go into psychosis, like, no, I'm not kidding. I kept going because I wanted to age with grace. I wanted to keep aging in a way that was worth something. And at that point, worth something meant being everything to someone else and like not having any boundaries, for example. But I thought that would lead to a life that was worth something. Because I believed that I could have that in some way or another, else I wouldn't have kept trying. That's just the truth. I wouldn't have kept trying. I wouldn't have kept going. It's crazy to think about. It's crazy for the first time to realize, like, wow, I've never needed the evidence from outside of myself that like love could exist and be kind and loyal and devoted and something that grows and changes and listens to you and like changes with you when you say something, being heard and having the actions change. That doesn't need to be coming towards me. That doesn't need to be a person that I'm with, because that has literally been me. That has been me every moment that I thought, okay, that didn't work, recalibrate. Being honest with myself, like, okay, that was painful, recalibrate, try something new. And you know, a lot of that, before I was in a healthy position, it was like, forgo more boundaries, right? But that was still me trying to like love myself well and inhabit these traits that like do inhabit love in some way, just manifested in an unhealthy way. So I didn't really know what love was or healthy love. I did not have a childhood that gave me that. That's just the reality. I love my parents. That was not my childhood. And for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, I have evidence of it. It's always been me. It's always been coming from me. And even if it's not coming towards me, and even if we go back to the idea of romantic love, this thing I once thought would be a salvation that I ran towards as a way to try and save myself, that effort of me trying to run towards it to save myself was a projection of love, an external projection of love, and of evidence of love being embodied, when I thought that the only love that existed was the thing that I was running towards, that it would only exist if I got that thing. It was the reason I was running. Like, it was already there. That's crazy. And maybe it's really abstract and theoretical and maybe like dramatic, but the thing is, like, when you spend so much of your life hating yourself for the decisions that you once made and having to try and from the ground up learn how to love yourself, or you're convinced that you've hated yourself your whole life and everything you've done was like out of self-hatred, it's really hard to rebuild a life that way and to reconfigure a life that way or reconstruct it. And I'm a really big believer in the fact that we don't really change. I think that we sort of reconfigure, but I think we usually have a lot of this stuff already inside of us, and it rearranges based on our experiences and becomes something kinder, more authentic, more honest, more healed, whatever. And that is self-love. And I think even in the moments you thought you hated yourself the most and it led to making decisions that feel like purely out of self-destruction, were you trying to relieve pain? Were you trying to run away to relieve some of your pain? And you ran into something that the way it would relieve the pain was destructive, but was it relieving the pain even if you were only numbing it? Because I think then I would argue that within yourself, in some way or another, whether it's this big or this big, it's just been rearranged in a way that's confusing and disoriented and not really being manifested in a healthy way. There was some kind of love there that was trying to protect you. And what is protection if not love? Like, what is protection of another person or protection of yourself if not some form of love personified? I think that they have to exist together. Caring about something enough to want to protect it from pain, you can't tell me that there's not love there. So it was always there. It was always coming from you. It was always coming from you. You don't need absolute evidence of it coming towards you or from others or finding it from others, because the fact that you even have kept going in any way to even have a thought like, oh, I would like to find love from someone else, or external love to come towards me and to prove that there is love or love exists or I can be loved. That moment in the after, even those like 5 seconds that you've continued after, that's the experience. That's love. You've loved yourself. And now that love lives inside of you. And I'm sure it'll rearrange, reconfigure based on what experiences you go through, the healing that you go through, the realizations you have, that'll like transfigure some of the stuff inside of you, and then you try and put it together again until suddenly it makes a lot more sense and things feel a lot more cohesive, until you can arrange things in a way that don't feel like they're always sort of leading you in a million different directions at once. But you'll get to that point because it's already in you. So you just have to you just have to rearrange. You just have to keep understanding yourself. You have to keep trying to understand yourself. I think you have to keep committing to listening to yourself and trying to understand yourself. And that is love. Like, trying to understand someone, trying to listen to them, trying to change for them, even if it's coming out in a way that at that time is not healthy. That is love. That is to be understood. It's to be loved. To be loved is to be understood. And you're making an active effort to understand yourself, even if it's just an effort to try and relieve your pain, even if you're using unhealthy coping mechanisms. There's something rooted in there that comes from like an effort to protect yourself and to understand your pain and how you could protect it. and protect yourself from it. I think if you commit to always understanding yourself, you are loving yourself. And I think that commitment to understanding yourself and that flexibility and that understanding and the dedication to trying new things when you come to realizations about yourself, that is love. And that is a commitment to love that I think will lead you to a life that feels worth living again. It feels worth living at all. But even though it's rooted, I think, in love, there's a foundation in there somewhere of love. You still have to commit to it. You have to commit to it. And I think if you make that commitment to just listening to yourself, you're loving yourself enough, and you will love yourself into a life that is worth living and a life that you love, no matter how long it takes. I feel like I'm 25 now, and for the first time in my life, I would have never worded it like this before, ever. But from the first moments in my childhood that changed the way that I saw the world forever, having some pretty horrific experiences, for the first time I'm looking back on it in a way that's like, I've loved myself into a life that I don't hate, but I've loved myself into a life where I know that love exists because I am love. And I've loved myself. And I've seen people write shit like that on Instagram or TikTok and these quotes, and it's beautiful, whatever. Doesn't make sense to me, didn't really make sense to me. And in the ways that it didn't really make sense in the way that they do now, in a way that's very personal. For me, it'd be like, oh, well, maybe I can be loved by someone because I love others, so I know that it exists. That's kind of how I would have interpreted it before. But now it's like, I know that I can have a life full of love, and like that is loving, and that I experience a loving life because my whole life has been evidence of that. And I've built my life through those active efforts because I never stopped building it. And so when I look back now, it's like, oh, I got to a point in my life where I know that my life will be loving and that love exists, and I will live a loved life and a loving life because my whole life has been built on love. In some way or another. Self-love, the projection of love onto others, like as a way to try and like grasp onto something that would make life right. I don't know. I feel it's a very large shift in my worldview, I suppose. And one that feels warm. Like when I would look back and I would look at life in a way that felt like I was just like I don't know, I hated myself really deeply. Like there was always a void. It's hard to look back and see something completely void of love and care. And then thinking, okay, well, at least I have it now. It's a lot warmer and hopeful to look back and know that love and care was always there and it never left. And now I just see it and get to appreciate it and indulge in it. But it was always there. It's a lot scarier to think back on the parts of your life, or when you're in the midst of a part of your life, and think that there is absolutely no love and care in your life. There's no love in your life at all because it's not coming towards you and you don't feel like you have it inside of you. Yet you're continuing to live, so it is there. And I think being able to think about it that way now, like even in my harder moments, knowing that like the fact that I'm even choosing to go through these harder moments, that there is love there. And it's coming from me. And that's all I needed to know for life to feel more hopeful. And I don't think I've ever lost hope, but I think maybe it's a little transmuted, I suppose. It makes looking back feel a lot less lonely and a lot less scary to look forward, because life is forever changing. Everything is semi-permanent. Like when you're in the good, there will be bad again, and there will be good again, and there will be bad again, and life will always change. And I think I'm doing good right now, and I will do bad again. Like that is the way that the world works. We go up, we go down, and that's okay. That's okay. And I feel a lot less afraid of the next time in my life that unfortunately something happens that is a low or really painful, knowing that like I'm not completely abandoned. Because even my active effort to continue in that moment like is evidence that I'm not completely abandoned by and will not experience and have lost all love. And love is really just an umbrella term for so many other good things in the world that make life worth living and warm and worth it. All of these umbrellas, terms that fall under it, which is hope or respect or all these different things. We just call it love, put it under the umbrella. Life devoid of all of those things like is really scary to think about continuing and really scary to live in, but it's a lot easier to think about knowing that at least like it'll always be there in some way or another because it's in me, and I actually now like believe that, and I have evidence, and I think I've reached a point where I see that and I act in a way that honors that, and that's changed everything for me. I don't know if that makes like total sense, and probably is like very much just a ramble. And maybe I won't post this, maybe I will, but I wanted to talk about it because it had me crying in public, because it was yesterday I saw that video, and then it was today, like 2 hours ago, when I was sitting in a cafe like by my house, and I was reading and I had my phone like on shuffle, and that song came on, and I haven't heard those lines like in so long, and I just immediately started crying, and I didn't know why I started crying, because usually I don't cry when I hear those lines, but the reason I started crying was because the first time in my life I felt like a wave of relief, like I did it. These lines that have followed me and clung to me in my worst moments, where I was afraid that I could get it wrong, and I needed to make the right decision if I wanted to have a life and a better life and be better. I felt like I did it. Oh my God, for the first time I heard those words, and I did it. It didn't feel like a bittersweet, almost painful reminder that I have to keep going. There's something I need to achieve, and that means I need to keep going even when I want to collapse. And for the first time, it wasn't that kind of reminder. This time it was like recognition that I did it. That's what it felt like a wave of overwhelming relief. I did it. I feel like I've aged with grace. And that was never abandoning myself, even when maybe it looked like abandonment. It was the fact that I kept trying. And in the moments that I could have chosen cruelty or to be mean, after absorbing that from the world, and the commitment to not do that, like for the first time, I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I've really solidified who I am as a person. I'm 25. My brain is developed. I feel like I've really solidified as a person, and I've become someone who does not do that. And I'm not afraid of becoming that, because I've spent 25 years of my life aging and committing to that. Call it aging with grace. And I'm no longer afraid of becoming this thing, because I know who I am, and that is not who I am. Even in the most ungraceful moments of my life, I'm not going to be mean, and I'm not going to be cruel. And these things that once terrified me, that would just come out of me, and I would become something I didn't want to be, or I was terrified of, or that I was this thing and I didn't know how to be better, and I just didn't realize what I was doing that was making me that bad. All these like really overwhelming, irrational thoughts sometimes, they don't scare me anymore, because I know who I am and who I've always been. It's crazy. And one of those things is someone who has continued to love myself, even when I didn't know how to express it in a way that took care of myself. So I think I did it. I've aged, and I feel confident. And I've said this in a video, my thank you video. I feel whole for the first time, and I think that's what it is. I feel so grounded and settled in who I am now that I feel whole. And because I feel whole, like, it doesn't feel like there's a part of me that could potentially be colored in and cause me to become something I didn't want to be colored in the wrong way, like absorbing the pain from like my abusive relationship and then becoming like a hateful person or something. I've been colored in. I feel like I'm colored in. I'm colored in the way that's like not, like I don't absorb new experiences, but I'm colored in like who I am and who I will be and how I choose to react to things and how I react to things and my dedication to myself. I know who I am. That is colored in, and that's not going to change. And I've proven that by living my life and actively making those choices every single day. I feel whole, and I feel like I've aged with grace to get there. And aging with grace means whatever. It doesn't mean like you have to age never having a moment where the cruelty you face has come back out of your own mouth. Like, that's not what it means. It just means that you continue to live, and you continue to age. Through your worst moments, you've continued to age. And that is aging, I would say, with grace, when you're aging through something incredibly ungraceful and painful and cruel, maybe, or just world-shattering. The fact that you continued, that's what it means. Your continuation. That is aging with grace. I don't know. Was it nice? I cried. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I cried. I went into the bathroom and I cried, and I was like, what the fuck? Get it together. I couldn't. I kept crying. I was like, oh my God, I gotta go. And then I left, and then I came home, and then I started filming this. So those are just some thoughts. I don't know. I just thought I would share this. I get a lot of messages from people who have experienced abuse and trauma and domestic violence, because I talk about that often, and the experience of trying to figure out how to live a life in the after. And I guess I just want to say that if you're continuing to live your life in the after, I hope that you can recognize and use that as a reminder that you are living a loved life and that you are loved, even if you can't really recognize it or see it or doesn't really feel that way, because you don't really know what love feels like yet. But love feels like consistently choosing and to be chosen, and you have chosen yourself to live in that after. That is choosing yourself, and that is love. And I hope you can remember and be reminded of that in the moments where you just don't even know how you're supposed to continue in a life after. The fact that you're continuing, that is loved, and you're living a loved life. And just give yourself time, please. Like, if there's anything that I could ever say to anyone who's like in that moment where they have to figure out how to live in the after of something like world shattering, give yourself time. Like, give yourself the promise of time. Just give yourself that time and let your life unfold and let you unfold, and commit to listening to yourself and to understanding yourself, even if it's painful or it hurts or you don't want to live it. Like, at least allow yourself to be heard. And I mean heard by you. Like, what? Like, that might sound weird and not always make sense, but the way that you act and you react to things, someone has to listen to them in order for those things to be recognized, taken into account, and then used as the information necessary to make changes so that they don't happen again if they're causing pain or they're from a place of pain. And I would say commit to like honoring yourself in the way that you're caring about the way that you react to things and the way that you're choosing to act enough to try and remedy whatever it is that might lead to the actions or reactions that are causing you pain. I think that is love. And that's one way to show it. I think you're already loving yourself by existing, but one way to show yourself love, I think, into especially leading into a life and growing into a life and blossoming into a life where you really recognize and feel that love, is like committing to being the one who hears you. Even in a quiet room where there's no one else, even completely alone by yourself, listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Always listen to yourself. And adjust when necessary, or just listen. Be heard. I don't know. There's not always going to be someone around us who will listen or understand. That's just the reality. But you'll be there, and you can be the listener you need. And that sounds weird, like there's a split self, but when you've gone through something incredibly traumatic, there's a split self. There is a split self. There's a before and there's an after, and you're trying to integrate those two things. So you are a listener, at the same time that you're the one living and experiencing it. So be a good listener. That's how you can show your love. Like, care about yourself that way. Just listen to yourself. Recognize yourself and the things that are happening to you, and the way that you feel and the way that you're reacting. I don't know. I don't know if this is even like helpful, but I guess when I remember some of my worst moments, like how painful it was to know that it was like I was going to have to find a way to like climb whatever mountains, push through whatever fucking obstacles to get to a point where love existed at all within myself. That felt like insurmountable. And to change the perspective and see that it was always already there, I just needed to reconfigure some things inside of me to make it more easily noticeable and easily accessible, and to grow it. That makes it a lot easier, I think, to continue. And so if you're in a position like that where it feels like almost insurmountable to continue to try and build something from the ground up, like it doesn't exist at all, I hope that maybe it can help to remember that it is within you already, and it hasn't completely abandoned you, and you just have to work to get a better look at it, if you will. If it's like in murky waters, clear it up a little bit. I don't know. But if you're aging at all after something that was painful, you're aging with grace. And I hope that maybe that can give you the comfort that it's given me. Yeah, I guess that's it. I just wanted to talk about it. This video ended up being way longer than I anticipated. I see the time on my camera. Well, maybe I won't upload it. I actually don't know if I'll upload this. But if I do, I hope that it could be maybe in some way or another comforting or helpful, or just, I don't know. I've been in a lot of pain, and I know that many people who watch my things have been in a lot of pain. And more than anything, I just want you to know that you're not alone. And the fact that you're living a life after the painful thing happened, enough to just watch a video, like, that's evidence that you're continuing to live, and that's evidence that you're choosing yourself, and to be chosen is to be loved. So I don't make the rules. Unfortunately, it's true. You are in some way or another loving yourself. So, okay, capitalize on that. You don't have to search your whole life for it. It's already there. Life's really exhausting when you think you're going to have to search everywhere for something, and it's not in you, and then find a way to shove it inside you. It's already there. It's already there. You don't have to search forever. You just have to get a little bit of a better grip on yourself, I think. And that seems a lot more feasible, a lot less impossible than searching an entire world. Can't cover enough ground to feel like that's possible. It's just you. I don't know. Okay. I don't know if that's helpful. Well, I guess I'll end it here. We'll see if I upload this. And thank you. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you if you've ever been someone who's made this channel your own in some way. I say this in the past few videos, but again, I've changed so much recently, and it truly is because of you and this platform and being a part of it with you. And that is what has led to moments like this, where I'm experiencing and hearing things that once caused a really intense amount of grief and a responsibility that felt overwhelming, and not really wanted, to feel a wave of relief in the face of them instead. That is because of you. It is. It was like the relationship and the experiences I needed that have come from you and here, that have led to this new sort of worldview, if anything, a new view of the self. And that came from this. I've tried so hard my whole life, and I got there in a lot of ways, but this has changed my entire life, and it is you. So I did a thank you video on it. I said it at the end of my last video, and I'll say it again, but it's true. And all my videos are just about what's happening in my life right now, and that's what's happening is the current, in the moment impact that you are having on me, and it's immense. So pretty immeasurable, I would say. Thank you for making me feel like I can live a life worth living, and that's worth something. Even if maybe to no one else ever again, it's worth something because it feels like it's worth something to me. And I've never felt that way before. And thank you for giving me a path forward to see love as something that already lives around me and in me. And you probably didn't even know you were doing it. If you left a comment or sent me a message, it could have been something totally unrelated to anything. It could have been a funny comment. You've helped lead me here. You've helped me lead myself back to a place that felt safe. So thank you. Thank you. I'll never have the words, but I'll keep saying it until maybe I find them. But until then, I'll settle on just thank you. Okay. I guess that's it. And if you have any thoughts on this, anything you would like to talk about or share, anything that you've experienced, things that you're experiencing now, literally anything, whether it's this or literally anything at all, ever, you're always welcome to do it here. I hope that this can be a space you feel safe enough to do that, to share. I would love to hear it. I know others would as well. I always say this, but one of the messages I get the most is people saying how the comment sections have really changed their lives. So know that your thoughts and experiences are wanted. If you feel comfortable sharing them, I would love to hear them. And if you want to talk about something and you don't feel safe enough or comfortable enough to do it in a public comment section, you can always send it to me directly. I have my emails down below. I would love to hear it. And I always read and watch the things that get sent to me. And if I haven't gotten back to them, I swear to you I will. I promise. Even if it takes me a minute, but I always do read and see them. And I hope that can be a space where you feel safe enough to do it. I'd be honored to be in your audience. And I can publish it as well. I have a website, and I'll link down below where there's published submissions, some really beautiful pieces. And there'll be some new ones added probably within the next couple days. And if you would like it uploaded there, a longer piece, whatever, I can do that. I also have another YouTube channel that's submissions. So if writing is not your medium, You can send me a video submission. If there's something you want to talk about, anything, or an audio recording, I can still upload it there as a submission. I'll link that channel down below. There is a video over there already. It's about triggers after an abusive relationship. And it's a really wonderful video. The woman who submitted it, it's a really good video. I recommend it. And yeah, I think that's it. I hope that this can be a place that you feel safe enough to share, and a place where you can be reminded that your sharing is wanted, because it, I hope, would also heal you, because making these videos has healed me. But the thing that has really healed me is hearing from you and hearing your experiences. So your experiences are always more than wanted and welcome to be shared, and I hope they could heal you, but they will also heal others. So they're wanted by me, and I know other people in the comments. They're always welcome. So, okay. You have given me a place to help heal, and I hope that this can be a place for you to help heal as well, in the ways that I just described. So, okay. This is way too long. Oh, my recent videos have been like really long. Like, I feel like they're just way too long, but I'll get to a point where they're not this long. Like, I'll make them back to, like, I don't know, more normal length. The next video I do this week, I'll make sure I make it like a more normal length. But okay, that's it. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to hear your experiences or thoughts if you feel comfortable sharing them. And I will see you in the next, hopefully shorter video. Okay, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you. And yeah, bye.